Hello and welcome. You're watching India Fights, back with me, Rajat Kane. Well, as India faces unprecedented spike in COVID positive numbers amid what is referred to as second wave, a 4-day long special vaccination drive is taking place across the country, the drive that started on April 11th. Well, Prime Minister Modi has also appealed to everyone to follow a four-fold principle, emphasizing on the need to follow both personal and social hygiene and also infuse awareness amongst whomsoever we interact in terms of COVID-19 disease as well as vaccination. He has urged citizens to imbibe these four principles: each one, vaccinate one, encourage people to get more and more vaccinated, especially the ones who are eligible, which is at the stage above 45 years of age. Each one, treat one, help everyone in this hour of need. Each one, save one. We have to protect ourselves and also others. And lastly, people-led creation of micro-containment zones. We have to be responsible in terms of treating this disease as something to avoid places of high level of footfall, at the same time maintaining COVID appropriate behavior. So how important is it to be on a vigil at this stage, and what all we can do as India faces a second spike of COVID-19? To discuss further on this issue, we join with panel of two guests: Dr. Raman Gangakherkar. He is member National Task Force of COVID-19 and also chair ICMR. Many thanks, Dr. Gangakherkar, for joining us once again on the show. Pleasure to have you. Dr. Mohammad Asheel, he is Executive Director, Kerala Social Security Mission from Government of Kerala. Many thanks, Dr. Asheel, to be part of the show. Let me start with you, Dr. Kherkar. Sir, with the spike, or what we say the second wave of COVID-19, last time when we had interacted, I had asked you a specific question. Did we ever envisage that numbers will come down to this level, or will there be a second wave? And now Prime Minister has appealed everyone to follow these four principles. How important, therefore, is it to be extremely on the guard now?
We need to be on the guard. Perhaps, we need to be more rigorous at present, mainly because all of us know second wave tends to rapidly rise, adds pressure on hospital services, especially hospitalization. Though some tend to believe that the case fatality rate continues to remain lower in the second wave, but one must also remember that even if it is true, the sheet of cases that you would have perhaps will ensure that you will not only have the same numbers of death, perhaps higher than what we had anticipated then. What is most important for us to understand that we need to learn from what we see. Human beings are most often considered as most intelligent and evolved beings only because they tend to learn through their experience. They tend to avoid noxious circumstances which can pose challenges to them really well compared to others. Now that we are seeing such situation, knowing fully well that this is arising because perhaps I didn't use the COVID appropriate behavior. I didn't adhere to those COVID appropriate behavior well. I also know that use of mask, which is a very harmless thing, which is something which anybody can do, I did not follow. But if I use it, I'm likely to avert that virus coming in my body, my family, and perhaps the risk that somebody could get hospitalized, somebody could die, and what is worse is leave behind an imprint of financial expenses which will push you back for next 1 or 2 years down. That's not something which is very, very difficult to imagine, difficult to change. We just need to adopt to the COVID appropriate behavior. And why do we need this to be repeatedly told by the Prime Minister? Do we not, as individuals, at least ensure our family's safety, our own safety? I think it is time that we need to pay heed or pay attention to the advice that the Prime Minister is giving, follow everything, follow COVID appropriate behavior rigorously. All those who are eligible must go and take the vaccine as quickly as they can.
Right, Dr. Khedkar, you have noticed situation before I go off to Dr. Ashil. Just small question to you, sir. It's more about awareness and our behavioral issues. As you said, I mean, human beings have this inherent nature of learning from past experiences. And as somebody who is senior of this expert committee, as somebody who has seen the entire pandemic, unfolding last year, is there a feeling, as we often talk, dar khatam ho gaya hai, this is like, it's okay, we have seen past 1 year. So is it something that we were expecting among people, or is it a part of human nature?
No, it is a part of human nature. There is no doubt on that. Even if you provide some information, they would like to confirm whether it could be true. Because we don't believe in what comes on TV, what comes in social media, or what comes in news items. Completely. We would like to have a convenience bias in choosing what we would like to believe. But when it comes to such issues where health related threats come, one tends to go by one's own experiential learning. No, so what would it say that when people said that we have been successful in containing the first wave, and I don't see any evidence that anybody around me is actually becoming sick because of COVID 19, I would come back into the same mode that I was earlier, and I start believing if COVID is not there, why should I follow adherence to this particular COVID appropriate behavior? And this kind of a response is common in human beings because anything that you force through either fear or any change that you want to bring in within a short period of time, one tends to resist by trying to go towards what we call as towards the mean, the
Right.
earlier responses that they were used to. So therefore, it is not unexpected. But what is unexpected is despite the fact that we are seeing so many numbers increase across the country in different states, so many people finding it difficult to get admitted in the hospital.
Right.
Now, also, if I don't change, no, that would be extremely sad.
Right. Absolutely. That's really important. To all our viewers watching the show, please listen to experts. Do not become experts yourself. This is fairly serious disease. We are in a pandemic situation, and as we're saying, it's a second wave, which is, of course, like throwing more numbers or a spike as we compare with the last wave. Dr. Ashil, many thanks for waiting in the show, sir. Sir, let me ask you one question right up here, sir. You are part of Kerala's social security mission, government of Kerala. What is that the government of Kerala is doing to battle the second wave of COVID? We remember in the first wave, I mean, during this time, numbers were just showing up. The way Kerala responded to was wrote about, and of course, it was highly appreciated. So, what is now the state is doing?
No, before that, I must compliment what Raman sir has already said.
Right.
Pandemics comes in waves. So if you see the experience of 1918 Spanish flu experience, what we see is that Spanish flu came in actually 4 waves. So the biggest havoc was caused by the second wave, which actually it is known to have caused around deaths of around 2 crore people in the Indian subcontinent itself in 1918, 100 years back. So and now what we can see that we are much equipped than in the last century. So if we see, we are not in the position of March 2020 when we come to March 2021. That's something which we need to understand ourselves. At the same time, there is something which is concerning us is that even in the ICMR seroprevalence study, which showed that around 22% of the people are already infected and having a seropositivity, which other words means that around 78% of the population in India are still susceptible. They have not been exposed to COVID-19 earlier. So that's the level of population which can actually cause. That's a population which is potentially the victim of the next wave. So we must expect a kind of a major rapid increase in the cases in the second wave, and that's the experience we see globally also. The second wave has been much more. The case per million per day is much more when compared to when compared to the earlier wave. Now, when we see in India, most of the state has already gone to the second wave, and Kerala, like actually, we have able to delay the first peak. Although we were the first state to report the cases, we have been able to successfully delay the first peak. So what we have now is that we have entered in the second peak. Maybe our elections, the unprotected large number of interactions during the elections have probably pulled our second wave to a nearer space. So now what we see is that when we are entering the second space, what we are now actually we are taking a three main routes for crushing the curve. So that crushing the curve, what we are saying about the crushing the curve is that why we say of crushing the curve rather than delaying the peak or flattening the peak is that now we have something to crush the curve. That is obviously the strongest tool of public health, that is vaccines. Now, in Kerala, our zero prevalence was around 10.5%, which means that around 89% of the population is still susceptible. So, still susceptible. This is the population which vaccines also target. This is the population with the infection also targets. Now, it's a run against time that who catches it first, whether it's a vaccine or the natural infection. So that's exactly why we are planning to have a kind of a 1 month long intensive drive in which we will be focusing on three things. That is, one is back to basics. When we said of break the chain campaign activities starting from last March, we have focused on SMS, that is soap, mask and social distancing. That is being said again and again, and people are being compelled to do that so that we can actually keep the pace of the infection much below the pace of our vaccination. And the second thing is that, as Raman sir has rightly put it, the people get into complacency and saying that if someone even develops a fever, they would think that this is some common fever. It's not COVID-19, it's common fever. So what we need to understand, what is common is defined as by epidemiology. If you look into, if you are in Africa and if you go for a differential diagnosis with fever and joint pain, there can be multiple diagnoses. It can be Cassino-Forest disease, it can be yellow fever, many other diagnoses would come. Because obviously what is common is actually defined by what is very prevalent. So now everyone need to understand that corona is very prevalent, COVID-19 is very prevalent. So if you develop the fever and the cough and the symptoms which is associated with corona, most probably it may be COVID-19. It's not something what we call as COVID. So what the second point we urge is that anyone who is symptomatic, anyone who is having any kind of disease, they come out and test. That is something we are again promoting. At the same time, and when the third part is increasing the number of vaccination, the pace of vaccination. So one limitations here is that the whole nation is actually into the second wave. Almost all nation is in the second wave. So what's happening that there is a potential. There would be a potential shortage of vaccines. That's exactly why. So we need to be very judicious in that. And next, as the Honorable Prime Minister has put it rightly, we need to actually start a kind of a campaign. We have already started a campaign in which we must be focusing on saving lives, protecting ourselves and others, and also ensuring that everyone is getting vaccinated. Especially the priority, I must say, when we are fixing the priority, we have rightly put that above 45 would be vaccinated. That's a beautiful priority, I must say that, because if you look at the data, especially in Kerala, we found that out of the people who died due to COVID-19, 96% of them belongs to the category of above 45. So that would actually bring down the fatality. So it's a big fight happening, and everyone must contribute and cooperate, I think.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Mohammad Ashil here from Kerala, and he's just explaining what the state is doing, initiatives taken by the state government and of course like the state authorities, and on the threefold approach so as to counter the rise or the spike of COVID-19. Dr. Raman Gangakherkar sir, how important is now the concept of micro containment zone, and that to like the people-led initiative? I know it's fairly a long call, but here the awareness among peoples themselves touching a height where they are creating their own containment zones. Yeah.
See, what are other options that we have which we could implement at this point in time? One option that comes to everybody's mind is lockdown. But one must also remember that lockdown in first wave was an automatic option because we were trying to battle with an imported infection. The seeds of those infections had not traveled all that far. It came from China. It may have come from some other small countries. We wanted to stop that. But now, once the first wave has declined, what is important to recognize? It is important to recognize that the seeds are sown everywhere. Now, lockdown as a strategy is of very little use. Sometimes I wonder whether we are really thinking when we put different kinds of restrictions as well. One of the restrictions that if I want to go from Maharashtra to some other state, I must have negative RT-PCR. No, it is as if those state boundaries are so rigid. No, the infection should not travel that way. Perhaps it doesn't make any sense. What is important is if it comes to broad measures that we used to have earlier, those kinds of national measures will not be possible this time because they are going to impact our economy, impact our every
Absolutely.
possible
Yeah.
way, our
Yeah.
lives as such. The only way is you try to put restrictions using a calibrated response as micro containment zones. No, so that those who are not infected, those who are following or adhering to the COVID appropriate behavior can continue to live a life which could be productive, whatever they want to do, as long as they are wearing masks, they are ensuring that they follow COVID appropriate behavior, there is no reason for us to worry, so that you prevent that particular infection. So focusing on micro containment zones is extremely critical. But at the same
Right.
time, we must also realize the numbers are so high in some of the states that doing contact tracing through the government machinery will become extremely difficult. If you take a case of Bombay or Pune, if every day I'm supposed to trace 20 odd or 30 odd people who could be my contacts, and my number every day is, let's say, 10,000, no,
Right.
it's humanly not possible because you don't have so much of healthcare
Right.
manpower. So what we will have to do is we will have to involve the community in doing this contact tracing. Each one of us will have to assume as if you are a worker for the country, and I would like to ensure that contact tracing is done within my family. If I have found that somebody is infected, I will monitor that individual whether he has isolated well. Otherwise, no, the stress on healthcare system. At one hand, you will handle hospitals which are overburdened, and
Right.
on the other hand, you have contact tracing, and on third hand, vaccines to be provided. I don't know how people will be able to manage everything in a balanced manner unless we involve the community.
That's really important, sir. That's really important in terms of balance of our health workers and our medical fraternity. Dr. Ashil, how are you coping up? How is your state coping up with this challenge of balancing out? Of course, like we have the footfall of a lot of COVID positive patients, or rather the ones who are seeking test for COVID. And of course, at the same time, the vaccination drive, because all these things has to go in tandem. So how is your state coping up with the challenge?
If you see the restrictions in a management of pandemic, it can be actually seen as a pyramid of pyramid of control, something we can call that. So at the top of the apex of the pyramid, that's a lockdown, that's extreme step where everything is actually there is a collective sacrifice of every system to see that the infection rates are not getting high and the health system capacity is not overflown. So whether a state goes to the lockdown depends upon whether their daily cases crosses their health system capacity threshold. So, for example, why Maharashtra is thinking of a lockdown is that there, as Raman sir has rightly put it, you have 50,000 to 60,000 cases per day in a state, and that would definitely overflow your health system capacity. Now you need to clamp it. So that's the time then when extreme steps like lockdown would come if it was required anyhow. So now that is the extreme of the pyramid. Next comes the thing what we call as cluster containment strategy, the micro containment zones, where we actually focus on the places where there are real infections, where there are clustering happening. We focus on that area and control it there. And there are many other steps in that, following the contact tracing, follow each of these cases. That's the next level, or maybe the lighter level. And if you come to the next downward of the pyramid, that another is that the increase in the restrictions. Like, for example, limiting the number of people attending a function, closing down the schools, closing down the hotels, crossing down the cinema theaters. All this comes in the restriction part. And the most important, I believe, is the last part of the pyramid. That's the downward part of the pyramid, where everyone focus on the basic COVID appropriate behavior. If everyone focus on that, the base of the pyramid, if everyone focus on that COVID appropriate behavior, then your probability of coming up in the pyramid actually comes down. When you reach a position where your cases are very high and the health system capacity is overflown, then only you reach the apex of the pyramid, that is the lockdown. Well, what we are, as I said, how the state is trying to do is that we are actually looking at the occupancy of all the hospitals there. For example, today, if you see the Calicut, one of the districts in Calicut is actually the hospital occupancy, the ICU occupancy, the occupancy of ventilators are coming to a level of around the 15 to 20%. So we know that if it goes above 40%, we have kept a threshold of 40% because we don't want to look at a situation where we have a 70% occupancy of ICU beds and searching for more. Now, when we see that we have reached a 40%, we are actually trying to clamp those areas where the focus is coming, where we are imposing more restrictions. So that kinds require a very titrated action. As Raman sir has rightly put, we cannot actually go for major restrictions. We need to be we have the data now, we have the resources now. If you look at the infrastructure which is available now, the testing capacity of the nation, the testing capacity of the states are very high when compared to last year. So we can be very focused and say that if a case occurs in a district where the cases are high, you can actually bring the local restrictions over there, and to see the hospital occupancy and the ICU bed occupancy are not going beyond what is expected. So that should not be left to a level that you occupy the 70% or 80%.
Right.
Our target should be limiting it to 50%, so that we have the surge capacity always remains much above than the infectious rate.
Dr. Ashil, just as we leave, I just have a couple of minutes to squeeze in here. So just very briefly, how different do you see this second wave if you compare to the first wave? I have a very small question, but there's a lot of people are quite curious to know about it.
Okay, the difference between the first wave and the second wave is that at the first wave was happening, we were totally unaware of what's happening. So that's exactly why when we actually clamp down our entire system, that is we call as a stage of collective sacrifice. We can actually classify the stages into 3 stages of pandemic response. First stage is the stage of collective sacrifice. This was the stage when the virus first came in. We don't know really about the virus. We don't know how to be treated. We don't know what resources required, and our capacity was very low. Now what we did is we have increased our capacity. Now when the virus comes in the second wave, definitely it's in a much pacer, the curve is much steeper. And much steeper. The curve also means that our testing capacity high. That's another part of that. We are testing more cases also now. So when in the second wave, when the cases are increasing in a much steeper way, our capacity is also increased. People start asking me, why did you lock down initially? Because initially we were buying time. Now, as Raman sir has rightly put it, we are in the midst of a COVID-19 across. So we are living with the virus. When we are living with the virus, we should titrate between our lives, livelihood, and our health system capacity threshold. So that's exactly why the second wave is dangerous. Something we should not take it very silly. It's dangerous, but now we are more prepared to face the wave than we were earlier.
That's really important. Dr. Khedkar sir, just last question, same to you. What's your opinion here? The second wave, I mean, I know that the rise has been much steeper. How critical do you see it's now really to go all out in terms of defending ourselves against COVID now?
I think it is very important for each and every individual in our country to feel that I could be the next person who could be infected. I could be the villain who could be passing this infection to everybody in the community and try to change to ensure that they would never be labeled that it is I got this infection from somebody whom I know. I think if we try to protect ourselves and be aggressive in following this COVID appropriate behavior and taking vaccine if you are above 45, I think it is still in our hands that we can still pull it down. We might be able to slow down the pace. It is possible, the slowdown in the pace may subsequently transform itself into decline of second wave if 95%, more than 95% people adhere to COVID appropriate behavior.
Right, right. That's really important. So clearly, COVID appropriate behavior is highly essential. Many thanks, Dr. Raman Gangakherkar. Many thanks, Dr. Mohammad Asheel. Pleasure to have both of you gentlemen on a show, and extremely important that all those viewers are watching us, please do heed, pay attention to what the experts are saying. Before we leave, a small appeal by this network to all our viewers. Please keep wearing face masks, keep washing your hands, and do not forget to maintain social distancing. These facets of COVID appropriate behavior are highly essential so as to defeat this pandemic. Well, that's it in this edition of India Fights Back. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.